My estranged sister tried to steal my lottery winnings, but my dead grandfathers will had other plans. I'm still reeling from everything that happened, and I honestly don't know where to begin. It feels like a whirlwind of emotions, betrayals, and ultimately, a strange kind of justice. I'm posting here because I just need to get it all out, and maybe some of you have experienced something similar, or at least have some advice on how to navigate the fallout. Let's start from the beginning. My sister, Clara, and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's 2 years older than me, and ever since we were kids, she's been the golden child. Always the prettier one, the smarter one, the more popular one. Or at least, that's how my parents always made it seem. I was always in her shadow, constantly compared to her, and always found lacking. It led to a lot of resentment on my part, and a dismissive attitude from her. As we got older, it only got worse. Clara became incredibly entitled, believing that everything she desired should be handed to her on a silver platter. She rarely worked, bounced between various get-rich-quick schemes that inevitably failed, and always expected my parents to bail her out. I, on the other hand, worked hard, put myself through college, and built a modest but stable life for myself. Our estrangement began about 5 years ago. My grandfather, who was the only person in my family who truly understood and supported me, passed away. He was a kind, eccentric man who had a soft spot for me, probably because he saw how I was treated compared to Clara. In his will, he left me a significant sum of money, enough to pay off my student loans, put a down payment on a small house, and have a comfortable nest egg. He left Clara a much smaller amount, with the stipulation that it was to be used for educational purposes or professional development, knowing full well she would likely squander it. This sent Clara into a rage. She accused me of manipulating our grandfather, claimed I had somehow tricked him into changing his will, and publicly denounced me at his funeral. My parents, of course, sided with her, calling me greedy and heartless for not sharing my inheritance with my struggling sister. That was the last straw for me. I cut off contact with Clara and significantly distanced myself from my parents. For 5 years, I lived a peaceful, relatively drama-free life. I focused on my career, nurtured my friendships, and slowly but surely, healed from the years of emotional neglect and abuse. I bought a small house, adopted a wonderful rescue dog, and even started dating a fantastic person, Alex, who is everything I ever wanted in a partner. He's kind, supportive, and loves me for who I am, not for what I can provide or how I compare to someone else. Then, 2 months ago, my life took an unexpected turn. I bought a lottery ticket on a whim, something I rarely do, and I won. Not a small amount, either. I won a staggering $30 million. I was in disbelief. I checked the numbers a dozen times, had Alex check them, and then had a professional confirm it. It was real. We were ecstatic, but also terrified. We knew that this kind of money could attract a lot of unwanted attention, especially from my family. We decided to keep it a secret, at least for a while we figured out our next steps. We consulted with financial advisors and lawyers, set up trusts, and made plans for a secure future. We even started planning a small, discreet trip around the world, something I'd always dreamed of. The problem was, secrets have a way of getting out. I'm not entirely sure how it happened, but Clara found out. My best guess is that one of my parents, still somewhat in contact with me through occasional, strained phone calls, mentioned something about my newfound financial stability without realizing the full extent of it, and Clara, with her honed radar for anything that could benefit her, put 2 and 2 together. One afternoon, I received a barrage of frantic text messages from Clara. They started off relatively mild, asking if I was doing okay, if everything was all right. Then they quickly escalated. "Heard you came into some money," one read. "Why haven't you told me?" Another, "You always keep everything to yourself. This isn't fair." Then came the really aggressive ones. "I know you won the lottery. Don't even try to deny it." And finally, "You owe me. You always have." My heart sank. I knew this was coming. I decided to ignore her messages, hoping she would eventually give up. But Clara doesn't give up easily, especially when she thinks there's money involved. The next day, she showed up at my doorstep. I live in a quiet neighborhood, and seeing her car, which I hadn't seen in years, parked outside my house, filled me with dread. I didn't answer the door. She rang the doorbell repeatedly, pounded on the door, and then started shouting, "Open up, my name. I know you're in there. We need to talk about this." I could hear my neighbors peeking through their curtains, wondering what the commotion was. It was mortifying. Eventually, she gave up and left, but not before leaving a threatening note taped to my door, demanding a family meeting to discuss my obligations. I immediately called Alex, who was out of town on a business trip. He was furious and told me to get a restraining order. I was hesitant, still clinging to the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, Clara would see reason. That was a foolish thought, I now realize. The family meeting she demanded took place a week later at my parents' house. I only agreed to go because my parents had called me, begging me to come, saying it was important to clear the air. Against my better judgment, and with Alex's reluctant blessing, I went, but I brought my lawyer with me. I wasn't going in unprotected. The atmosphere in my parents' living room was thick with tension. Clara was there, of course, looking smug and self-righteous. My parents looked stressed, clearly caught in the middle, but still leaning heavily towards Clara's side. As soon as I sat down, Clara launched into a tirade. She started by accusing me of being selfish, of abandoning my family, and of hoarding my good fortune. She then got to the point. She demanded half of my lottery winnings. "It's only fair," she declared, as if it were an undeniable truth. "You wouldn't have even bought that ticket if grandfather hadn't given you that money. So technically, it's all part of the same windfall. And you know how much I need it. My business ventures have been struggling. I deserve a fresh start." My jaw dropped. I looked at my parents, expecting them to shut her down, to remind her that I owed her nothing. Instead, my mother spoke up. "Clara has a point, dear. Your grandfather always wanted his grandchildren to be happy and successful. And Clara has had such a hard time. This could really turn her life around." My father nodded in agreement. "It's what family does, my name. We support each other. And you have so much now. What's a few million to you?" I felt a surge of cold fury. This was exactly why I had distanced myself from them. They had never changed. They would always prioritize Clara, always expect me to sacrifice for her. My lawyer, a calm and collected woman named Sarah, interjected. "With all due respect," she began, her voice firm but polite, "my client has no legal or moral obligation to share her winnings with anyone. This is her money, earned through her own luck." Clara scoffed. "Luck? Please. She's always been lucky. I'm the one who always gets the short end of the stick. And what about grandfather's will? She stole that from me too." And that's when things took an unexpected turn. My lawyer smiled faintly. "Actually, Ms. Clara, that's precisely what I wanted to discuss. It seems you've forgotten a crucial detail about your grandfather's will." Clara looked confused, then dismissive. "What are you talking about? He barely left me anything." "On the contrary," Sarah continued, pulling out a sheaf of documents. "Your grandfather was a very wise man. He anticipated situations like this. While he did leave you a smaller sum for educational or professional development, he also established a rather ingenious trust. A trust that, I believe, you were never fully informed about, or perhaps chose to ignore." My parents and Clara exchanged bewildered glances. I was just as confused. I had no idea what Sarah was talking about. "Your grandfather," Sarah explained, "was deeply concerned about both of his granddaughters' futures. He saw your drive and ambition, my name, and wanted to ensure you had the means to achieve your goals. For you, Ms. Clara, he saw a different path. He was aware of your tendency towards impulsive decisions and financial difficulties. So, in his will, he stipulated that if, at any point, within 10 years of his passing, either of his granddaughters came into a significant sum of money, defined as an amount exceeding a certain threshold, which your lottery winnings certainly do, the other granddaughter would have the option to trigger a specific clause in his will. Clara's eyes widened. What clause? What are you talking about? The clause states, Sarah read from a document, that if granddaughter Clara, within 10 years of my passing, publicly demands or attempts to legally acquire any portion of granddaughter, my name, independently acquired significant financial windfall, then granddaughter, my name, shall have the right to claim the entire remaining balance of the educational or professional development trust fund designated for granddaughter Clara, with the express purpose of using said funds to further her own education, career, or charitable endeavors as she sees fit. Furthermore, any previously disbursed funds from that trust to granddaughter Clara shall be considered an advance, and if not used for their stated purpose, must be repaid. A stunned silence filled the room. Clara's face drained of color. My parents looked like they had seen a ghost. I, on the other hand, felt a slow, dawning sense of vindication. My grandfather, bless his brilliant, eccentric soul, had truly been looking out for me, even from beyond the grave. But that's not fair. Clara finally sputtered, her voice trembling. He can't do that. That's my money. It was your money, Ms. Clara, contingent on certain conditions, Sarah calmly corrected. Conditions which, by your current actions, you have unequivocally failed to meet. By publicly demanding a portion of your sister's lottery winnings, you have triggered the clause. Therefore, as of this moment, the entire balance of your educational trust, which currently holds approximately $500,000, now legally belongs to my name. I couldn't help but gasp. $500,000. I had no idea that trust was even that large, let alone that it had such a clause attached to it. My grandfather really had been playing the long game. Clara let out a choked cry. No, you can't do this. This is a trick. It's all perfectly legal and documented, Sarah said, handing my parents copies of the relevant sections of the will. Your father was the executor of the will, Mr. my last name. He should have been aware of this clause. My father, looking utterly bewildered, took the documents and started poring over them. My mother just stared at Clara, then at me, her expression a mix of shock and something I couldn't quite decipher, perhaps a flicker of understanding, or even regret. And as for the advance you received from that trust for your startup venture 3 years ago, Ms. Clara, Sarah added, that was approximately $100,000. We have documentation showing that the startup venture was a fraudulent pyramid scheme that collapsed within 6 months, and the funds were not used for their stated educational or professional development purpose. Therefore, that amount is also legally recoverable by my client. Clara looked like she was about to faint. You're lying. That's not true. It is all clearly stipulated in the will, Ms. Clara, Sarah insisted, her voice unwavering. Your grandfather was very thorough. He knew you might try to take advantage of your sister, and he put safeguards in place. My parents were silent, their faces etched with disbelief. They clearly hadn't known about the full extent of my grandfather's foresight, or perhaps they had simply chosen to ignore the parts of the will that didn't suit their narrative of Clara as the perpetually wrong victim. The meeting ended shortly after that, with Clara storming out in a fit of rage, screaming about how I had ruined her life and how she would never forgive me. My parents were left shell-shocked, repeatedly apologizing to Sarah and me for their daughter's behavior, but I could tell their apologies were more out of embarrassment than genuine remorse for how they had treated me. Since then, things have been interesting. Clara has been trying to contact me non-stop, oscillating between furious accusations and desperate pleas for forgiveness. She's threatened to sue me, then begged me to reconsider and give her back her money. I've blocked her number and all her social media accounts. My lawyer is in the process of recovering the $500,000 from the trust and the $100,000 advance from Clara. It turns out the $100,000 is still mostly intact in an investment account Clara had opened. having forgotten about it after her scheme failed. She's been living off my parents and various other sources, never quite managing her finances, and my parents have also been trying to reach out, but their calls are still filled with veiled attempts to mediate, to bring the family back together, which always seems to translate to make Clara happy. I've told them firmly that I will not be discussing this further, and that my relationship with Clara is over. I've also made it clear that if they continue to enable her behavior or try to pressure me, I will have to distance myself from them completely. They seem to be finally understanding the gravity of the situation, though I'm not holding my breath for a complete change of heart. Alex has been an absolute rock throughout all of this. He's proud of me for standing my ground, and is completely supportive of my decision to cut off Clara and maintain boundaries with my parents. We are still planning our trip, and now, with the additional $600,000 from my grandfather's brilliantly executed plan, we'll be able to do even more. That I feel a strange mix of emotions. There's relief, of course, that I won't have to deal with Clara's constant demands anymore, and that my grandfather's thoughtful provisions have brought a measure of justice. There's also a sense of sadness for the family I never truly had, and the realization that some relationships are simply beyond repair. But mostly, there's a feeling of empowerment. For the first time in my life, I feel truly free, unburdened by the expectations and manipulations of my past. That I'm trying to focus on the future, on building a life with Alex that is filled with joy, peace, and genuine connections. I'm grateful for my grandfather's wisdom, and for the incredible stroke of luck that brought me the lottery winnings. It feels like a second chance, a fresh start, and I'm determined to make the most of it. I just wanted to share my story, to get it all out, and maybe hear from others who have navigated similar family dynamics. Any advice on how to deal with the lingering emotional fallout, or how to fully embrace this new chapter, would be greatly appreciated.